that to be there. Okay, I think we're good. Sometimes I have these 17-hour Zoom sessions, which is not what I planned. This computer has Adobe Premiere on it for video editing. And when I did try to cut off the never-ending ending, I made it into like 8-bit video that you can't even see. So that's I need more Premiere experience. All right, where we were with our client. We just stopped because you guys needed more lab time than what we were going to have. So our client so far doesn't have much. We've allocated, or at least declared our streams, our data streams. We're going to have one that is our data that we want to send to the server, and another separate stream that's going to be the data that's coming from the server to us. We set up a border pane, and we have this prompt here that's going to be enter a radius. So you've probably noticed on our client, we're going to type in a number that's going to be a radius of a circle. When we press enter, that data is going to be transmitted to the server. We already coded that server code to calculate the radius based on that number. So we'll be able to see how that happens. So let's see what we've got. Here's our pane for text where we're setting it to the center. That's the last thing that we did. So I'm going to continue on from there. Let me zoom in a little bit. All right. So now let's create our border pane. We are in the client. Our border pane is going to be our main pane.
So you have a border pane side of the border pane.
Mm-hmm. We're going to have, it's a big giant pane. Big giant pane in the pane. Parentheses, silly thing. Thank you. Now our main pane is going to hold our text area. Let's get it all set up. Our text area to display the contents. So text area we'll name TA. We're not going to pass it any text to display. We'll set that up later. And then we're going to set a new scroll pane up in the center, and it's going to contain our text area. I made my main pane a real pane, and that would not be the correct typing. See, sometimes you make those Freudian slips even when you're typing, huh? That's what I was thinking. Okay, so I've got my text area set up inside of a scroll pane that's going to be in this main pane. And we're going to add a little bit more. Our pane for our text field. Now finally we're ready to create our scene and display everything. Now our scene is going to contain our main pane because we've got it containing everything else. And our dimensions there. As always, we're going to do our title on our primary stage. We'll make this say client so we can tell them apart. We'll set our scene. And then we'll show our stage. Now we should be able to test at this point. We haven't added our action events, so nothing's going to, nothing's going to happen. But at least we can see if it's built properly, our form. Oops, I'm going to have to launch it. Did you get one? Mine does not do anything if I don't have the launch.
That was one of the first things that happens.
Never does. There it goes. So now we're going to be ready to enter a radius up here in our text box. And then in this big area is where we'll display our answer that we get back from the server. Okay, so let's add some action events so we can make it do something. Did everybody's display okay?
No, I couldn't edit that, so I had to make a new thing.
Okay, let's see where you are.
Each thing stuff we typed in. What I had to do was this. And then
No, you're finding one.
I wonder if because the number yeah. It's gone from over that's under control. So he hopes that it's not electromagnetic. So now I got this. Jump over to so I have to go over there. Yeah, I sent him my files, but it didn't on. I'm like, they're under my gift. So I wonder if that's why it's locked out. Because he opened up the file, he can't edit it. He opened it, and it's not that thing.
Oh, you
said
sent him notes.
Hmm?
You sent him notes probably.
Yeah, I sent him zip files.
Yeah.
From 3132.
Yeah,
they calls.
Yeah, those.
So now we just need these last few lines here. Let's see, we had, there's the line you've got right there. Okay, Jay, come with us then and we'll get that part here in a minute. So after we show our stage, we are ready to add our action event step. So we're going to use our text field to set an action event. Now, what we want to do in this action event, we're going to be working with connections to the server. So we're going to enclose everything within a try-catch because we are likely to encounter errors. Now, within our try, we're going to get the radius from the text field. So we're going to get the text field from our text field, get the text property basically. We're going to trim it so that we get rid of any unnecessary spaces. and then we're going to parse it as a double. Once we've got it set as a double, we're going to put it into our radius variable. So our radius variable should end up being the number that was typed into our text field. And then we're ready to send it to the server. Now to send it to the server, we're going to use our to-server stream. This river is running from our client to our server. It only goes that direction. So we're going to put something into that buffer. We're going to use the write double method to do that because our radius variable is a double. Now when you use that data stream, notice when you type the dot and you look at all of the available methods, or if you went online and looked at the Java doc for that, you're going to see that you could write all sorts of different data types. You've got chars and doubles and floats and longs and shorts. And I'm going to tell you, for your chat, you should use UTF. So don't forget that, because if you use any of the ones that you think you should use, because they make logical sense, for some reason the chat won't work and it won't cooperate with you. But if you use the read and write UTF, you will have much better luck. UTF just being the formatting of strings. So that's why that one works. All right, so for our application though, we are not going to do a write UTF. We're going to do a write double because we're writing this radius. Once we write something to our buffer, we have to flush it. You can think of using these data streams kind of like using, you know, the facilities. You put something in, you've got to flush it to send it on, right? Otherwise it's just going to sit there forever. So flushing is important or nothing will happen. Now, once I've flushed that buffer, my program is basically going to go back into a wait. We're going to be trying to get the area back from the server. Remember, our server has to receive that data. It has to do a calculation to it, put it back in a buffer, and send it back to us. So we need to wait. There might be times where it's not ready. So we are going to be waiting. What we receive back from the server should be the entire area, and we should get it out of our from server buffer. We want to read that data as a double. Now, this statement right here should cause our process to wait, right? We should go into a wait state, waiting for data to come back from the server to be able to read that double. So it's not just going to be sitting there running forever. It's just going to be sitting there waiting. Now, once we get that data back, we can display it. To our text area.
So it's just sending it back to the client.
Yeah. So our server is going to process it and send it back to us. Once we get it back, we're going to append it to our text area. We're going to put in there radius is plus the radius value that we typed in originally. And we're going to add a little bit more. Oops, area received from server is plus our area plus again a new line. Now our action event is almost complete, but we need to add our catch logic. So right now our try is upset with us because we don't have an associated catch. So I'll add that in. For this catch, we want to catch any IO exception. And we're going to call that exception object that gets returned to us by the system EX. We are going to use the system error output and print out information from that exception object EX. It's going to print out the whole exception object. It's going to be really big. We shouldn't have a problem there. Now I need to finish up my action event. My action event is finished with the closing curly brace, and my closing parenthesis needs to be ended with a semicolon. Now that takes care of our action event that's associated with typing data on our form, but we need to still create a socket to try to connect to the server. So we've created our form and said what it should look like to the user. They can type in that radius. When they type in that radius and press enter, we're going to send it to the server, wait to get a response back. But we need to establish our connection to the server. So we could do this before or after we define this action event, right? But we'll just put it after. Again, it's going to be encased in a try-catch. We want to create a socket to connect to the server. We'll name it socket. Now, we used localhost on our server end as our server name. So we got to use that same name here. And we used port 8000 on our server, so we've got to use the same port. So if we want to establish that connection, we have to be connecting same host name, same port number. Now, if we can connect that socket, we've got those two connected together, we're able to create our data stream. Let's do our input data stream from the server. And remember, we had already allocated these buffer streams as class level variables. Now our input stream is going to use the socket, and from the socket it's going to use the get input stream method to get data. Now we want to create our output stream. And again, we had already pre-allocated that object to server. It's going to be a data output stream. Going to use our socket, get output stream, which seems like a bad method name, but that's what it's named. It should be like put output stream or something. But that's all right. We can use it this way. And then finally we need our catch. Again, we're going to catch any exception object as EX. In this case, we're going to append the exception object output to our text area, which is a great idea because then we'll actually be able to see it. And we're going to add a new line. So if we want our server to crash, or I mean our client to crash, we can run it without our server running, right? And then it should crash. We can see some of those exceptions we'd get. If you're ready to try it and see if you can make it break real easy. With no server back there behind it, it should be very upset.
Put anything else besides the delta, it breaks, doesn't it?
Yeah, it should break too.
I guess the end it was.
Mm-hmm. Yep, easy to break, easy to break. Now my connection, I'm getting a nice refused message because I have no server. And if I type a number and press enter, I can see it's crashing down here, that I'm getting null pointer exceptions because I can't establish those threads. So let's do it right. Let's start our server first. Bring up your server code, and we want to run our server. Now our server should be sitting here just waiting for a connection. And now we can go to our client and run our client. Now you should be able to see them both. So have your server and your client. I'm going to type a number in on my client. Press enter. We should see the messages on our server showing us and on our client. I will bring that back up, sir.
This thing got upset and says Windows Firewall.
Oh, just cancel.
Wow.
Did it break you?
Upset.
Oh,
No,
it's not just a little bit, huh? It's like, no, you're not going to do this.
It's like, no, I'm not letting you do this. Say no.
It should work anyways. Yeah, it should work anyways. Yeah, let me get that client code back up because we might be missing a little bit on yours. Let's see where you are. Go scroll back up because I think we need some of this from earlier. So good.
Yeah, I don't know how, why I keep talking about what I'm learning along. A lot of it just like previous assignments we've done. Just had a pass for that. It's like, oh yeah, I did that well. I looked at other like solutions online too. How to do something. I never really got down to the stuff. It's like the only difference is like everything.
Yeah.
But I bet like how we just did with the parse. Maybe you can just do parse area.
See if you're text areas and text fields. I keep bringing it up. I so you don't because it says it can convert string to text field. So you can make a string variable.
Yeah, because we.
Okay, so your chat is going to be just like this similar type thing, right? Now, the problem is this application, the server doesn't have to send anything back other than the result. Whereas if you're making a true chat, it's going to have to send back something. Or is the server really involved in the chat? Sometimes people aren't thinking of architecture properly when they implement this application. Because if we want to really think about the way it should be, the server should be running, and then we should be able to bring up many clients that could all chat with each other.
The server just takes it and passes it on to each one.
Yeah, and servers shouldn't even care how many clients there are, just sends it. Now, if you can do it that way, that's going to be the simplest. If you try to make the server function as a server and as a client, that's when things start getting ugly. Because now we're saying, oh, it's a server, but it also is a client. And remember, anytime we try to add too much functionality to one thing, we complicate it and make it hard to handle. So if we keep our server a server and say, we can have 57 clients running. They all just run and they just send messages to the server, and the server just sends messages back to anything that's connected to it. Yes, sir?
So out of curiosity, how come you get mad if you have 2 clients?
It shouldn't.
Mine gets upset. My second client stops responding.
There's an example further on in that PDF. Let's see if we can look at it, because that's a good question. Serving multiple clients. So in this next little section of the document that has our chapter, it's just right past where we are looking at our radius. The multi-threaded server starts the clients so they set up a thread class implementing the runnable so that they're kind of having a separate thread for each client. Yeah, so you might have to do that. So be sure to be looking at this example. It's not totally different than what we did. Yes, sir. It's up to you. So whenever you're chatting, we need to at least be able to send a message back and forth from one thing to another. Or you can make the server be a client.
Basically copy and paste the whole time. So
This one is a little bit.
Your server will be a little different, but your client, when you use it,
So you're talking about in your client class, you create another thread, like multi-threading.
in your server class. Your client should end up being just the same, pretty close to what we have.
But there could be multiple, I guess.
Right, right. Right. So you just start it over and over again. And then you should just be able to see, to me, it would be like, if you type a message in one client, you would see it in all of them. So you wouldn't worry about which client you sent that output to, you just send it to all.
Now, would it really be wrong to do it that way?
No.
2 classes.
There is no way that we draw.
Okay.
So however you want to do it.
Like that, better. Real world.
Yeah. Tiny way. I have a story about the chat app. It's kind of fun. Tim Franklin, if you guys have gone to any of the meetups or anything, he's really instrumental in town for all of those. He's the one that sends out all the messages. There's going to be a meetup tonight, this, that, or the other. He has some good stories about his first job. He worked for a trucking company in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And he said he got hired to write COBOL code. So he wasn't super excited. Kind of thought that maybe he would do something a little bit newer when he got hired, but no, he had to learn COBOL. One of his very first projects was to make an internal in-house chat. And he said, you would never think that you would write a chat, right? Because they're all already written. There's hundreds of them. Why reinvent the wheel? But the trucking company that he worked for wanted that capability, but they wanted to completely control it in-house. They didn't want any sort of information being outside of their company at all. So it was actually one of his very first projects. So his words of wisdom were kind of like, don't ever think that something has already been done so you won't get to do it, because you might get to do it anyway. Yes, sir. Usually not. Usually a lot of the companies, especially in our part of the country, I don't know if you've noticed, hillbillies have a tendency to be kind of private, if that's a thing, and it's a true thing. It's a true thing. And so companies that are run by former hillbillies or current hillbillies tend to be really concerned about privacy issues like that, where the next one on down the road might not be that way.
Shiners.
Yeah, exactly. They might have something going on, right? Yeah.
So if you close the server while the client's still running, it still sends things to the server?
It'll crash eventually.
Okay.
Eventually. So you might have some buffer time where it thinks that it's still communicating until it runs back and dies. It will eventually die.
That's nice thing over there.
When you, so this is server
Where
Yeah, like I have to just server and this client.
Yeah, like we try to you guys
I think
can
it'll
try
display
it
the same message.
across. You would have to put in, like, you guys.
Don't want it to
You would have to put in your IP address, there are firewalls, but you guys can try it. But yeah, you just want to use your different IP address for your computer, depending on how many types.
Oh, you guys are sorry. It's like an actual network application, it was just two files.
No, it's
That's a good question.
running over the network, so if the
There's a lot of good there.
different machines, you'd be able to communicate with each other with them. So I'm gonna leave that to you guys for now, and next time we'll look at your final and decide what to do from there. So lab time, work with your groups, start working on this chat, however you want to effectively use your time.
It was interesting.
What's that?
Getting more stuff